All right, well, welcome. Last session of the day, or one of the last sessions of the day. My name is Jason Rambeck. Today I'm doing a session on, it used to be an SEO session, so it's sort of a search engine optimization session that I took from a couple years ago and converted it, sort of updated it to the new world of, social media, adding into search engines and Google's and some of the big players in that. So it's a little bit different. It's the first time I've done it in this direction. So we'll see how it goes. Again, this is me, Jason Rambeck. I run a small Drupal shop, Think Simply Media. Twitter handle, my Drupal username, if you guys need to get in touch with me or have any questions in the future. So question, why? Why is this stuff important? So search engine optimization, I think, is kind of obvious. We want to attract traffic to our sites. We want our content to be found.
Do you mind if I turn the lights down?
No.
Cool. Thank you. Yes.
And you know what? Before I forget, too, I've got a giveaway today. This is a beginning Drupal book. Not sure what version it is. It looks new. I'm sure it's Drupal 7. Who's interested, first of all?
Always interesting.
Today, I think we'll figure this out to see who has the closest birthday. Anybody think they're the closest birthday today, whether past or forward?
Thursday.
Yes.
Really?
But I don't need it.
Okay.
Today?
To today, yeah, the 5th. So whether it was 2 days ago or 2 days, from today.
November? Anybody?
Who thinks they got the closest birthday? A week from now or a week?
Mine's Tuesday.
Ooh.
Mine was Thursday.
Was Thursday? Oh goodness! Now you can make me do math.
2 days, right?
2 days. Was Thursday and is Tuesday,
Yeah.
and today is Saturday. Oh, come on. Which one's closer? Is it a tie? Is it really a tie?
Oh, we playing Price
How
is
can we
Right.
do
Which
this?
is closer?
Rock, paper, scissors.
No, because today's Saturday, so Thursday was only, so if you're not counting their birthday, then it's Friday and today's Saturday. And then hers would be Sunday and Monday, so that's 2 days.
That's right.
Thursday is actually closer.
So Thursday. Whose was Thursday then?
Thursday is the
Thursday. There you go. I'm sort of tied down.
Thank you very much.
All right. So why this stuff's important? So search engine optimization is important because we want people to find our stuff. We create content on our websites. We want it to be found. Google's huge. Everybody's on Google. I don't how many billions of people search on, or how many search queries are on Google every day, but it's way too many to count. This is also related to social media stuff. So we want our content to also be shared now, right? On Facebook, on Google+, on Twitter, right? All these new fangled social media sites. Pinterest, there's no LinkedIn. There's a lot of different ones. Facebook being the big one, and Facebook has sort of carved out some of what we're going to talk about today with their Open Graph protocol as far as curating your metadata and making it look right on their sites and a lot of other sites as well. So the first thing we'll sort of look at here is what is called a SERP. S-E-R-P stands for Search Engine Result Page. So this looks familiar to everybody. This is the Google search result page. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at is how curating and making these look the way we want them to. Google has their robots, their bots that go out and check the sites and add them to their database and show up in these queries. But there's a lot that you can do to make sure that they look like you want them to look, that they say what you want them to say. So this is a search for iPad, and that's the search results that come up. So this is that first result that came up, and this is the website. Now, one of the things that we'll notice here is how did that description come up? It says watch how apps enrich lives, watch iPad TV ads, so on and so forth. We don't see it on the page. It's actually a meta description that's in the HTML code of our page, and it was added there and specifically written for search results. So that's one of the things that I want to sort of gear you guys towards thinking at is we want to have either us or the authors of our web pages think towards writing for these different media sites, Google, Facebook, and curating the content that people see there, not as an afterthought, but thinking towards those kinds of platforms that they're going to be ended up seen on. Here's another page with, again, a search engine result there at the bottom. And this is actually the meta tag module page on Drupal.org. And here's how those SERPs work. So the meta tag / or pipe Drupal.org is the page title. So it's kind of confusing because when you're just talking, this is also the page title, right, meta tag. But as far as what we're talking about search engine optimization, the page title is in the actual HTML title tag up there, and that's only in the code, and it's not shown on the page. It is shown in the browser, in the heading, on most browsers anyway. That's an important for both search engine optimization, keywords, and really the general rule of thumb for search engine optimization is the most important text on a page starts at the top and goes down. And so the most important thing is typically that page title. Google likes that, it ranks that higher. The next thing you're going to have is the domain name. So if you're the keyword people are searching for, so I search for Drupal modules a lot, I type Drupal and meta tag. Drupal's right there in the domain, it's going to give that a lot of ranking, and then whatever else is in the path after that is going to have a lot of value as well, and then everything else on the page kind of follows under that. So that's just a general rule of thumb. Now what we're talking about here is sculpting and making our search engine result look the way that we want. The page title is sort of automatic. You can't really change that. It's going to look like how you have it on your page. So, but you have control over it. So you can make it say or whatever you want. Domain name, you obviously have the choice to choose your own domain name. But obviously that shows up here in the green text there on the Google search result page. Now, the third part here is probably the most, the hardest thing for people to think about. It's not, Google grabs text and fills that in with something. And most of the time, they use your description that you give to them. Sometimes they don't. I would say maybe 90% of the time. And depending on what you're searching on, that can be different. So you see how the meta tag word in that description is highlighted. It's because one of the keywords that we searched was meta tag. So most of the time they'll use that description that you give it and put that as their description. Now notice one thing here. It starts off, it says November 23rd, 2009. And that's not something that Google added. It's from something posted by Dave Reed on November 23rd, 2009. Is the place where they grab that. And we don't necessarily want that. That's not important. In fact, it kind of detracts from our search result page because it seems old, right? That's 4 years ago. So I happen to know that Drupal.org module pages don't have, the page maintainers don't have any control over that particular meta tag. And actually, I think next, here is an old version of that page that I grabbed from probably a couple years ago, where they had here a little highlighted note about recently switching the name of the project. And Google doesn't know, it thinks that's the first paragraph of the page. It thinks it's probably good to use as the meta description, but when you're doing a search for it and you see the text says, we recently switched project short names on Drupal.org, it's not very helpful to the person and might hurt the clickability of your link. So that's another good reason to look and to create these page descriptions for each of your pages. All right, so that is sort of the important parts to search result pages. Then we get into Open Graph meta tags. So this is a Facebook invention that they put their weight behind making this a standard. And there's several other sites that use these now. These are all meta properties. OG, title, image, description, OG type, URL. Those are all things that Facebook pulls to create these little snippets here. So on this page we'll see this is a website that I manage, and in front in the section there it's a little snippet of the teaser that Facebook creates. So when you put that URL into Facebook, it creates a little teaser there. Now a couple things that you'll notice is the title that it used for the teaser is not the same title in the top of the browser that Google uses. So right now that says Closing the Opportunity Gap, PIPE, National Education Policy Center. So the title that Facebook's using is different because we told it to use something different, using the organic or Open Graph meta tags. URL, it's going to use the URL that actually exists. And the description, there's actually a separate or Open Graph meta description that we can set for that. Now, one of the things that some people have asked me in the past is why would you want a separate description for like a Google search versus a Facebook search? And a lot of times there shouldn't be a difference, right? But they are two different contexts that people are going to see your content in. One is people are actually actively searching for your stuff. And you know, when as far as strategy goes, you want to think towards what's going to make my content more attractive to this audience. One audience is actively looking for stuff. The other audience, it's sort of showing up in their feed. It's being shared. I'm at a loss for a hard, concrete example, but if you think about it, I think you can think of some. So there's a good reason to have different tags for these different places that your content's going to show up.
What if you don't have those?
Well, that's a good question. So what if somebody shares your link that you have on your website on a Facebook and you don't have Open Graph tags? Facebook, just like Google, right? If you don't have a meta description tag, they have sort of a way that they're going to grab the first paragraph after the H1 tag, and they're going to use that because that's probably the most likely thing that best describes your content. They want your content to look good too, but if you don't help them out, you know, it's just a robot. You know, that's what this whole presentation is about, is the robots are human. You know, they don't understand our content unless we help them to understand it. So Facebook will do the same thing, and most likely they'll do it very similar to the way that Google does it. They'll grab the first paragraph after the heading tag on your site. And it may work, it may not, you know, and we want to help, you know, these big sites to share our stuff well. Another question?
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to answer that. An issue that we've had to come up with our clients is that the image that Facebook grabs is the more likely to be embarrassing issue, where it's an image that's maybe from a separate news story entirely, and that is the main reason that we've implemented this Open Graph stuff for our clients.
Right, and it's the hardest thing for them to detect as well, because especially if, let's say you have a sidebar on your website and a bunch of images in it, but it shows up first in your content, you know, in the order of your HTML, then that's the, you know, highest, you know, they don't know which image is right. And they have a little cool thing here where you can choose your image. This particular site only has one, but you could choose the thumbnail that you want to do. But, you know, who does that? And some people use other tools that don't give you that option to share stuff on Facebook. So you want to make it idiot-proof. You want to make it, and for this particular example as well, you'll notice this particular graphic we created is sort of a 3D version of the book. And if you notice, that graphic that's on the snippet there is not. You know, it's just a regular image. And it works a lot better, I think, for the teaser. And so that particular image doesn't actually show up on the web page that people are sharing. We told it to use an image that we specified that we thought would work for that particular scenario. Any other questions on that?
Google doesn't look at the Open Graph stuff at all.
That's a good question. I don't know. You know, Google doesn't do images, right, with their snippets or with their SERPs. we'll get into some of what Google does when we talk about just a little bit about the schema.org stuff. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, Google has started to, like, if you got a blog and you have a photo of yourself to a blog, it's loading that stuff in
Yeah.
version. Then it's got that whole knowledge graph thing that loads in more content as well.
Right.
But that's not connected to the Open Graph.
It's not connected. It's their own deal, and they're trying. And it's a standard called schema.org. There's some other terminology that goes with it, but it actually goes pretty far, where they're trying to create relations between content. We'll get into that actually in a little bit. One of the things Facebook or Google Plus profiles, I think, is what you're talking about, where they show the picture of the author.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's connected to Google Plus.
Yeah, so schema.org, this is sort of what we're talking about here. So this is a search for Braveheart movie. And you'll notice that Google pulled up this whole sort of interesting, it's got some pictures of the cover, it's got the date, the title, some 5-star ratings, release date, director. And schema.org is something that, again, Google has pioneered as sort of a way for people to create sort of better help, again, robots identify what this information is and make it more usable for all kinds of different things. Google search result page is one of them, and I think that's why Google's using it, but there's lots of other ways that it can be used. You'll notice in that actually top result page, they actually have the ratings and the number of votes in the Google search snippet there. That's something that they've started adding, and they keep changing this, keep adding more sort of different kinds of results. They got news results that are broken down. You'll see. I'm trying to think of the new thing that Google's doing, where they have sort of long form article results at the bottom of the page when they identify that something's more sort of a reliable resource and it's really in depth about the topic and things like that. But they're also identifying pages as content. So they've identified that this, and I know that Internet Movie Database does use their schema.org schema to wrap their HTML and their fields in these various tags, which I'll actually just go ahead and move to. This isn't movie schema type. This is, I think, an example of local business. So if you look at this, the wrapper around this particular item, the item type is schema.org/local business. And you just have these item prop values, name, description, address. So this is a little bit of what that will look like when you implement those things. Now there's some, I don't really have any examples of Drupal's support for this. Drupal has various types of support via contrib modules and whatnot, but a lot of this could just be done in the theming layer when you're creating fields and you're just wrapping your HTML and adding these tags and what you're doing. So there's a number of different ways to do this in Drupal, and this can get really in depth, and this becomes really useful when you're either a really big site with a lot of sort of a library of information, or e-commerce is also a big spot because you can put dollar values and things like Pinterest is now, when somebody pins a product, it's showing prices and things like that, and they're using this kind of tagging to be able to identify that. All right, now this is something a little bit different. It sort of goes back to the SEO, search engine optimization, but also has to do, I think, a little bit with your metadata in general. So aliases, of course, are the different page names that you identify for a page. So down here, the example.com car/Toyota/Camry, and it's just a short name, or it could be as long or as short, as complex or simple as you want. But these show up, these are things that people see and read, and you need to sort of identify these and look at these for several reasons. One is people do look at them and read them. Two, they help with a number of different other things when it comes to search engines and whatnot. So 3 rules of thumb that I kind of keep is when you're creating your URLs, and we'll show how to automate that in a little bit in Drupal, you want them to be readable. You want them to be somewhat logical, like that first example. Cars is the broad category down to Toyota and to their Camry. And then you also want them to be, keyword rich. So, that's a little bit more into the dark magic of SEO and what keywords you should use and what you shouldn't, and that's, that can be where a lot of the work comes in. But in general, we need to identify that is an important thing. And then there to automate with Path Auto. So Path Auto is a Drupal module that I think you still have to, still a contrib module, but I don't know anybody who doesn't add that immediately after they install Drupal. Question?
Do you know of any advantage either through SEO or accessibility or anything of going with like Toyota/Camry or Toyota-Camry? Does being higher in the structure help you or hurt you or?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let me back up. I believe the keywords earlier in the URL are ranked higher,
Okay.
but it's so negligible, I think, unless you're, it's really not as important. As far as using a dash versus a slash, I don't think that's an issue at all. I think it looks at it the same.
Any functional or any advantage to forcing the display of a .html at the end of the URL?
Forcing the display of what?
.html rather than having that.
That's a good question. So the question is, if you have a URL that ends in .html, the actual document name, does that affect anything? I don't think it affects anything at all. They only, so I think that's one of the reasons people don't, because everything, having a content management system where we're not displaying files, right? So, but you can name this Camry dot, I've seen sites that say dot, XYZ sometimes. You can literally name it whatever you want. It's just an add-on to the deal. Google will probably just ignore it. So getting back a little bit more into these page URLs, one of the things that's very sort of important above and beyond how we name our pages is making sure that there's only one way to get to our pages. And this has to do with how mostly search engines being able to see your page as just one page. And this is, I think, an area where a lot of people sort of miss it, and they don't sort of realize how watered down their page can become in Google's eyes. So when they're looking at your page, they want to know, they don't know that, well, for example, let's see, where are we at? www.apple.com/iPad is a page. www.apple.com/iPad/ is also another page that technically is a completely different page. Now, most Facebooks and the Googles and whatnot sort of have now made some room for people to do this, but in general, we want to make all of our pages always load with the same URL all the time. And there's actually one module that does most of this for you just by turning it on, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's called Global Redirect. But when you start realizing it, you go next. Every Drupal page also has a node URL, node/26. So that's 3 different pages that Google, at least in the past, and even now, for some of these cases, will get indexed by in their database as a different entity. So when they see, a lot of people have linked to your page using node/26, and some other people have linked to it via /iPad, some will get 50%, the other will get the other 50%, and it dilutes their rating or their ranking. So we want these to be always the same. Again, with Drupal, you have clean URLs, and if you don't redirect the non-clean URLs, they will also, be just another way to get to that page. Again, another one, a non-clean node URL. And then you get into, when you get into Google Analytics or just analytics on your website, let's say you have 2 links to a page, one in the menu and one in the footer, and the analytics guys want to track, are they clicking from the menu or from the sidebar or that kind of thing. They'll add a little URL variable to it to see, I want to see in my analytics which button they clicked on. That's yet another page that people go to, and that can be water down your results. Again, now we're getting into apple.com without the www. So now we can basically duplicate that whole list again with that. So you can see real quickly how this adds up. Apple Inc., a lot of websites have multiple domain names that point to the same one. So we'll talk about in a second how to eliminate all that pretty much with one click. So going back to that very last example here, we have Apple, let's see, apple.com and www.apple.com. And one thing that we need to do here to eliminate that particular thing is our htaccess file. So the htaccess file is a file within the root of Drupal. It does a bunch of different stuff. And they actually have this nice little commented out rule sets, or 2 different rule sets, where you can just remove literally those 2 hashtags, hash marks, and apply the rule to either redirect any page without www or with www, whatever it is, whatever your preference is.
In your experience, do you have a preference?
You know what? I don't. It really depends. Honestly, if I have a really long URL, sometimes I like to remove the www. If it's a short, I like to add it. You know, most of the time, especially with clients, it's sometimes it's a client preference. Sometimes it's the audience. You know, if you have an older audience who always, you know people who every site they put in www no matter what.
Right.
You know, then maybe you want to add that in.
But does it really matter? I mean, it's going to redirect it no matter whether they put that in, type it in explicitly or not. And the search engine is only going to see the one without it because it's been redirected. So it really doesn't.
It matters. Yeah. The question is, does it matter? A tad, maybe, just only because that's how it's going to show up in your search engine result, maybe. It doesn't matter in the sense that, yes, you're going to create a redirect, you're going to catch it. If they put in www, you're going to redirect it to whatever you want. If they don't, you're going to redirect it wherever.
The company can advertise it with or without it.
Right. The company can advertise it any way they want. And that's actually happened where, you know, people put in a wrong, in print, they put the URL wrong. As long as the domain's somewhat correct, then, you know, you can create a redirect to get people to the right spot, you know, things like that. So here we get into, you know, with all this stuff, you want to create a plan. And when you're creating a website, there's a lot of planning that should be done. And this is just one little area that needs to be added to. Actually, at the bottom of here, I have an example. Palantir has a spreadsheet for developing Drupal sites. It's something Larry Garfield blogged about here a couple months ago. I started using it. And it does have some areas for planning what paths you want to give to certain content types and whatnot. And by the way, this whole slide deck I'm going to have I have so you can download here at the end. So all these links will be available. But so it has some areas in there for some of this stuff. And I've been thinking about maybe contributing some other areas for some more metadata as you plan your site structure and whatnot. But when you're thinking about creating your site, you want to plan for these things. So there's 2, at least the things we're talking about today, there's 2 areas. One is, you know, the paths for your different content, which usually and then you have your metadata for your different content type. And there's the different things you want to look at really is the home page, which is the most important. That's the most visited page on your site and the most visible page on your site. And then the second is each content type. As far as when we're referencing Drupal, each content type, you know, it's a different kind of content, should be, you know, slightly changed, or you know, your metadata and your URL paths should compensate for what kind of content it is. And then you have important landing pages as well. So, you know, the blog landing page versus, you know, any landing page that's not a specific piece of content itself. A little bit like what Jeff was talking about this morning, where we have, you know, these landing pages where we pull in all kinds of data. Those are important pages too that we want to, you know, add this metadata to. And most of the time, those are customized because they're not really about one kind of object. All right, well, let's get into a little bit of a demo here. So this is just a little demo site that I quickly set up, and it has a blog on it with 2 blog posts. So one of the first things that we want to talk about here, I'm going to go ahead and click on iPad tips and tricks. So here's our URL. Pretty straightforward, simple. This URL is created using PathAuto, and I think I got that on this next page. So PathAuto is an add-on module for Drupal, contrib module, that allows you to, one, create via tokens your paths as you develop your, as people create content. So it allows you to predetermine the structure of your pages as far as the URL is concerned. Right here we have content paths, which are for nodes. So right now we have two node types. One is pattern for all articles, and the other is for basic pages. And then we have a fallback here. So the fallback, I usually make that just the node title. But here, so for articles, let's say, hey, we want all the articles to live at the, under blog. So we'll put that, and then we'll put a token here, and we'll say, hey, use the title. And so PathAuto uses this module to render the title with the proper dashes, removes all the uppercase letters and things like that to make it look clean. It removes small words like or, a, things like that. So it makes it, worthwhile for Google. It removes sort of the words that they ignore anyway. It makes it look fairly clean and good. So as far as on the way that this looks on a new page, we'll go ahead and maybe, let's just try to edit this page here. Loading. This is loading locally too. It's
I was gonna say, boy,
not
for
going
loading
out.
locally, that's really slow. Huh?
Yeah. All right, so title, body. So here's our image field. And down here, where are we at? URL aliases, okay? So this is defaultly clicked, and it will generate this according to our rule that we had created there. You can always, for each content type, just uncheck it and write it out however you want. But if you don't, it automatically generates it from that module right there. So you can do this with not just nodes, but with taxonomy terms, users, lots of different kinds of things. So that's something that, when you create these content types, you want to go in here, you want to create their paths to line up with the way that you want them to. So the next area, so that's paths. The next area is with meta tags. So the meta tag module is great. It covers all the basic meta tags that like Google uses, and it also has extra modules for the Facebook Open Graph tags and a Twitter card and a few other. You'll see in a second. It has a load of different things. So the way that this module works is you can create, again, automated tags using tokens. So tokens, so for example, I created, and the way that this works is through a cascading system. So when I click on node, this sort of shows the tokens that are being used. So the page title looks like this, and description uses the node summary, and Open Graph title just uses the node title and not the site name. But let's say this specific node called article, I just want to override one thing. So if you have sort of a good idea for all the nodes on your site, you just can change it in one area. And if one, you want to override something, then you don't have to change everything, all your different nodes. You can just change the one that fits, and it overrides it. So it's kind of built well in that regard. So in this particular, and I'll go ahead and edit this so you can kind of see. So again, these are the tokens in here: node summary, abstract, keywords. Keywords is an old meta tag that nobody looks at anymore because it's too easy to trick. Well, here's some of the important stuff. So Open Graph opens up here. Facebook, admins, application ID, those aren't necessary. So you got your title, your summary, and then you have all the different types. So these are all the kinds of types of data, and Facebook displays them sometimes a bit differently depending on what kind of type of data you're showing. So if you have a database of movies, I guess, or products is a big one too. And this is, of course, is one of those big things that we talked about, which is your image. So you want to choose this. So what I've done here is our article or blog content type has a field called image, and that field is the token is used here so that Facebook is never guessing what our image is. We're telling it this is the image, and we're telling it to even use the large version of that image, because Facebook likes to use big images, and sometimes they blow them up. If it's not big, it'll look bad. So we want to think towards those type of things and make sure they have the images that look appropriate for where they're going to show up. So they got a bunch of other stuff on here we can get into. Trying to finish up here. Twitter card, again, this is all stuff that when somebody does a tweet, you can do some other stuff with this. Same kind of thing, because they create these previews as well. I think that's fairly new within the last year or so. So if you've never used the token module, there's a link down here to sort of be able to cut and paste or insert tokens. So you can sort of search for them. You look in your nodes and you find the image here, and want to use the large one. You click on that and it inserts it in the box that you had there. All right, so again, that's automating each content type. So again, we're back in our article here, and you can also override this. So right now, we're in the meta tags tab down here, and all these are pre-filled for us because of how we set it up in the settings. But, whatever, if one of the editors or whoever is writing the content thinks that it should be overridden for whatever reason, just remove it, put it whatever you want in there. So it gives you lots of flexibility here to override stuff per node that you create. Okay, clean URLs and global redirect. So really, clean URLs is, I think, default now, right, on Drupal installations. I don't remember ever messing with that anymore. But global redirect is a module. Literally, you turn it on, and actually I had to uncheck these because when you turn it on, these are automatically checked. So these top two items remove most of those issues that we showed with duplicate URLs. So the d/ removes the slash at the end, which again, it's not so big an issue today. It has been in the past. But this other one is the biggest one. So non-clean to clean. So you have these examples that it shows here, where node 1 and whatnot. The other module, I guess that's not in here, is the redirect module. The redirect module you can set up so that if somebody changes the name of the page, let's say they change it from iPad to iPad 2 or something, then it can automatically take the old URL, and instead of it just working and being a separate URL, it turns it into a redirect. So it'll always bring people to the new and updated page name. Bunch of other options there. Anyway, so we're getting close to the end of our time. I'm going to show a couple of tools that are useful for doing this kind of stuff. Okay, Google has a tool. It's under their webmaster tools here for rich snippets. It allows you to put in the URL of your page, and it shows you how it sees it and what it's gonna. It's got some examples here. Let's do people. So it shows, well, this is the preview for the search engine result page. Okay, and so you can see what they say here. The excerpt from the page will show up here. The reason we can't show text from your web page is because the text depends on the query the user types. So like I said before, this sometimes works with your description, but it depends on what the search keywords are. So you got a bunch of other stuff in here. Again, like you had mentioned before, the Google Plus profiles. If that gets added here, you can sort of verify this with this tool and add it to your tags for each article. And then when you see your search result for that article, they'll show your picture, your Google Plus profile, and whatnot. Family name, given name. So this is structured data that's probably a part of schema.org, I'm assuming. So that's Google's tool. And next is Facebook tool. I use this a lot. So Facebook, I'll put in let's see, yeah, they have some examples here. So we'll put in this guy. Okay. So it's showing you the scrape information. Here's the URLs. Here's the image. It's a type of video movie URL. the title, description, name. Here's the share preview, so you can kind of see all this stuff and how it's going to show up before you launch and before you do things. The other very interesting tidbit that took me a long time to figure out was that if you're testing something, like on a live site, for instance, and you share a link on Facebook to kind of see how it looks, Facebook caches that metadata. So if you then go into your website and say, oh man, I want to use a bigger image, or that title was wrong, or description was wrong, they won't update it unless you go to this page and load that URL. So if you load that URL on this page, it somehow clears their cache or something so that you can now, future updates or shares on that particular page will have the new metadata that is on. And here's the actual tags that it's seeing here. All right, let's see if I had anything else before we shut down. We can skip that. So yeah, here's some links again. I'll have a link to download this so you guys can get these links. But these are some reference links to Facebook, Twitter, Google, tools, and schema.org, Pinterest, Rich Pins, and then some of the Drupal modules that we discussed here. Let's see. There you go. So that's where I just uploaded that now. So, questions?
For duplicate content, so if you have like a mobile, if you're using like a third party for mobile, displaying your mobile content, so places like an m.dot
Right.
domain, that's the same content. How does Google deal with that? Particularly, I think they have like a different search result set for mobile. Is that right?
So the question is, how does Google deal with separate mobile sites? So an m.dot domain name or a .mobi site that's your site, but it's generated separately versus like a responsive site or something that's the actual same content. It's just smaller. So Google actually recently changed some stuff so that they are now penalizing people whose mobile sites are not synced up almost exactly with their desktop version of their site. So I think you're okay if your mobile site, all the pages that exist on both places and are the same as far as the end URL. But if you have some missing pages, which often happens when you do that, and you have a separate sort of mobile site, people forget to create the mobile version or things like that, then they're starting to penalize you now. As far as search results, I'm not actually sure how Google does that. If you're searching from your mobile device, if they bring up a mobile page, I don't think that they do. I think that's one of the reasons that they kind of are doing this, because they don't want to have to sort of index separately for mobile versus desktop. So they just want one URL, and when you get there, it's okay, because usually on mobile sites, when they're doing it with a separate version, they have a user agent says, oh, you're on an iPhone, show them the mobile domain name, and it takes you to that page at that time. And so that's how it works. So that's why I think responsive is becoming so more popular. Responsive design basically just involves the same site, same content. It's just responsive, so it also shows up on different kinds of devices as well. Question?
There's been scuttlebutt about Hummingbird changing the way they look at, Google looks at keywords. Have you heard anything about that?
No. The question was about some scuttlebutt about Hummingbird, you said?
Yeah.
And about how Google looks at keywords? No, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Yes, question?
Talking about doing the redirects for the multiple versions of the same page.
Yeah.
How do you handle, like whereas a node number always exists, how do you obscure that?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure. So the question was, again for the recording here, is that how do you deal with multiple pages when Drupal always has a node/number, node ID URL versus the clean path that you created for it? I want to say that's either in Global Redirects module or the Redirect module, which I didn't show.
So that
it's one of those. It has an option, always redirect the node, the default URL.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Yeah.
If you do the SEO checklist module.
Yeah.
That's one of the things on your checklist that will remind you to do.
Okay.
And I can't remember if it's global redirecting.
And it's in one of those modules that.
It's
All right.
definitely one of those two. But if you do the SEO toolbox, you get all that stuff.
Yeah. SEO toolbox, SEO checklist. Toolbox, what does that do?
I think SEO toolbox is just somebody came up with a collection of these are the most useful things for SEO, and they grabbed like Path Auto and global redirect and put them all into a bundle, and instead you can download them all at once and install them.
Okay, yeah.
The checklist is really useful regardless of which ones you got installed.
Yeah, SEO checklist is a nice tool because it doesn't do anything other than lets you check off. Yeah, it has a checklist and you can check it off. These are the things I need to do, and because it's really the same thing for every for every site. You just have to make those decisions about the naming conventions and the nitty gritty about them. But really, you should be doing all the steps all the time.
Did you make the link for the download active on your blog?
There's no link to download your sites.
Oh, great. Yes, I will do that. Sorry. Oops. I don't know if that's what published.
We're quick.
I know.
Sitting here out there.
Robots? That doesn't work, huh? Maybe because I'm logged in.
This PDF down.
Yeah, what happens when you get there? I'm sorry.
But I don't see it.
That's not what I saw.
Is it being blocked by this place? Because we
I
can't
think,
Are you logged in?
I am logged in. That's probably why. But there you go. Yeah, I know. Where was I? Permissions, maybe?
yeah.
Probably that one, huh?
Yep.
That might show all your files on your other blog post though, if you want to do that.
Yeah. That's what that field's for anyway. Is it showing?
Yep.
There we go.
Oh, but it says get a 404 on
When you try to download it.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's see, how do we do this? That's right.
Make it a
Debugging on a live
attachment
site.
inside your
We really
I don't have that set up. Attachments in my WYSIWYG. I don't have that set up.
We'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. I'll stop recording here and try to fix it right now, but